Morning, welcome to ANZ News. It's Tuesday, 25th of August. A gold and a Bitcoin news article today. So it's Crypto Tuesday mixing with classic bullion. The debate rages over whether gold or Bitcoin is the best reserve asset and best collateral asset in history. It might seem unfair when comparing a 5,000-year-old tried and tested asset like gold against one that's barely a decade old. It is not an argument that needs to be combative. These two assets share many similarities and arguably both belong in a portfolio right now more than ever before. Like gold, it can be argued that Bitcoin is the hardest asset ever produced, with an impossible-to-change formula for supply, giving it predictability like no other asset. Its distributed nature also makes it one of the most anti-fragile systems ever created. Nothing can change the supply of Bitcoin that is mined. Nothing at all. But isn't there other fundamental risks associated with owning Bitcoin? The experts argue no. Power outages aren't a risk because the entire blockchain is stored on over 10,000 nodes, all unconnected, spread all across the world. The risk of destroying or changing the ledger is only that of total thermonuclear global war or complete destruction of the planet, i.e. the risk is super low, and we'd have bigger problems on our hands than dealing with whether our Bitcoin has survived. Others talk about the risk of quantum computing, breaking the cryptography. Well, that is at least a decade away, or maybe even more. It is also a known risk, and many are working on anti-quantum protection. The cryptographic arms race is in play, and there is too much money at stake to assume this risk is super high. The incentives are as high to solve this, and they are to break it. The other key pushback on Bitcoin is that governments will ban it. Globally, this is impossible due to the distributed nature of the blockchain, and because regulatory arbitrage will allow others to go against any ban for their gain. And let's face it, no one is going to ban a $240 billion asset, even if they could. Bitcoin presents an incredibly compelling risk versus reward equation, given its infancy and fundamentals, and the timing right now appears near perfect. Firstly, this year we had the halving, when Bitcoin supply is halved by the algorithm. With increasing demand and less supply, prices tend to rise dramatically post-halving. What happens is that the stock to flow of Bitcoin keeps rising, meaning new supply is more marginal each time it happens, and thus the asset is rarer over time. Plan B has done the heavy maths using the stock to flow around halvings and projects a price of $280,000 in this cycle into 2022. Check out this next graph here. Huge big steps up in price there, as shown from around 2010, that pretty much coincide with every halving activity that's taken place. We get a similar projection if we use the previous halving period and overlay it, as shown in this next chart as well. The price chart is also one of the best examples of a wedge pattern ever, and it's broken out. Check out this chart here. Pretty solid wedge there, and on a log chart suggests even higher price targets than the stock to flow model in this next chart. And in the shorter term, it broke out of an inverse head and shoulders chart as well in this next chart shown here. Bitcoin is currently correcting and consolidating, and that's a good thing. It could be a pause that refreshes and a great time to jump in. What's going to lead the next phase of the bull run? Demand from institutions. And the beauty is we can front run it. The US has just approved more regulation towards Bitcoin, and it is now accepted as an asset across the world by regulators. It is no longer the payment method for drug dealers. The FBI proved that it is traceable, so that ended that game. In the US, banks are now allowed to custody Bitcoin, and that means that prime brokers can offer prime broking and custody Bitcoin, leaving the door wide open for every hedge fund. Financial services giant Fidelity, with $2.5 trillion under management, has built out a custody business too for family offices and endowments that are actively talking to pension funds. ICAP, the giant interdealer broker, has set up a digital asset group to broker to hedge funds, banks, and asset managers. Bitwise is very close to getting approval on an ETF, which will bring in every US registered investment advisor, or RIA, into the space. Silvergate, a US bank, offers a 24-hour cash-to-crypto exchange for brokers, market makers, and asset managers, where other banks wouldn't touch it and now have billions of dollars flowing through every day. All the brokerage platforms for retail brokers are adding Bitcoin as quickly as possible. Crypto hedge funds are up in general over 100% year to date and are attracting new assets at a rapid pace. And finally, as we talked about recently, MicroStrategy, a US tech firm, just switched $250 million of its treasury cash into Bitcoin, paving the way for others to diversify their treasury cash into an inflation-proof, high-performance asset. But right now, it's only a $240 billion asset. But the more it goes up, the larger its market cap grows, the more institutions can't ignore it. It's a market that essentially short calls or is convex in nature, and it will form a reflexive loop between asset managers, endowments, and pension funds, all driving up the participation of hedge funds, RIAs, retail investors, which drives up the market cap and thus sucks in more institutions. Right now, we have a very rare setup where some of the brightest macroeconomic minds, looking at the macro setup unfolding right now, are in complete agreement on just two trades: precious metals and Bitcoin. Speaking of rare opportunities, we've also just secured the last 2020 double Pixie silver coins. The last time we had 1,200 of them, they sold out in just over 1 day. This time, we've just got the last 600. Again, this is exclusive to Ainsley, and it's on sale now. So click through on our website on ainsleyBullion.com.au, and you can find any remaining double Pixie coins that are still available. Good luck if you're interested. Anything to do with cryptocurrency, jump over to ainsleywealth.com.au. And of course, check out our gold and or silver-backed cryptocurrency token that's been built by Ainsley Bullion. That's over at goldsilverstandard.com. We'll catch you tomorrow for more news.